Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. It's Monday, which means it's book club day, and we are in the midst of loyalty to your soul. If you are joining me live for book club, let me know when you have arrived. If you're catching the replay, let me know you're on the replay. It is fun to see who's benefiting from this book and who's reading it. Last week was really insightful, and we are going to be talking about the second half now of chapter 8. Last week, I'm just going to share kind of how we ended because we're picking right up there. All right. There's a lot of momentum in what was shared. So let's dive into this. At the end of last week, we ended mid-chapter on chapter 8, and this discussion was about compassion, which was a really interesting topic, and feeling pity for another person. And this sort of ties into what I said today. If you read what I wrote in the post here, I said, do you realize the number one problem facing humanity? And it is a problem that all of us face every single day, and we don't even realize we're facing it, that we're doing it. So we're going to talk about that. But let's kind of just revisit the end of where we left off last week. The last part said this: your actions are actually reactions from the ego-based perspective of what they're going through is terrible. It would be awful if I had to go through that too. I feel so sorry for them. So he's talking about pity, right? When we think we're being compassionate. He says this approach places those who are suffering in the victim mode and demonstrates a lack of spiritual awareness. For truly, how can you know what opportunity other people's souls are deriving from their experiences? We have to catch ourselves because we have an idea of what we like and what we don't like, what we have experienced in life, what we don't want to experience in life. And when we watch other people going through things, we tend to project and we think through and we think, hey, Charlotte, good to see you. And we think like, I would hate to go through that. So maybe there is someone dealing with a health challenge, or maybe there's someone who has lost their job, or maybe there's someone going through difficulty in their relationships. And we automatically start to feel pity. We start to try to have compassion, but what we're doing is we're seeing the other person as a victim, which puts them into a position where they have no power. And it's not actually helpful for that person, even though we feel we're being helpful, we are not. So the example he shares, he says, a lesson in compassion 101. He talks about how he was taking a statistics course and he was taking all these notes, and next to him there was a gentleman that was a quadriplegic. And so, he's trying to hold a pen and take notes, and obviously it's darn near impossible because of the fact that he's a quadriplegic. And so the guy asked if he can get a copy, of his notes. By him, I mean the author of the book. And he says, yeah, of course, and starts, chatting with the guy more. And eventually, he kind of says to the guy, it's kind of nice, we're becoming friends. And the guy looks at him and says, I don't think so. And the author was kind of taken aback, wait a second, what? I was being nice, I'm giving this guy my notes, we're talking a bunch. And he says, well, why not? Because he was shocked. And this is what the guy says. This is really important. He says, because you see me as a victim in this chair and you feel sorry for me. As long as you see me like that, we could never have a true friendship because your pity would always get in the way. If you could get past that, I think we could become friends. I mean, what level of awareness for this guy in the chair, but it's it is amazing. See people as people. You have no idea what their soul is learning. You have no idea how beneficial the difficulties, the challenges, the tough stuff they're going through actually is for them. And so how dare you sort of project onto them what you think their life experience should be like, okay? I caught myself doing this, and I think all of us probably have caught ourselves doing similar things. When I went to Ecuador with ASEA, with their Advancing Life Foundation, and it was their 10-year anniversary. So we were going into these communities where they've been doing projects for years and years, and we were meeting some of the locals, and I found myself feeling sorry for them. I mean, I just mentally I'm thinking, man, they don't have much here. Life is tough here. There's not a lot of opportunity here. And then I found myself sitting next to one of the women that was an elected official for her area, and she blew me away. More competent, more compassionate, more self-aware, just than most anyone I've ever met. And she said very clearly, she said, my community, we are smart, we are capable, we are driven, we have desire, we have dreams, we just don't have the resources. And we can partner because you all have resources. And if you give them these resources, the resources being a place to learn, schools, we can take these resources and we will run. And then she shared story after story of success, entrepreneurial success, new businesses, women stepping up, men stepping up, shifts happening in communities, kids having different outcomes. And I was like, whoa. I was judging. Like I was completely judging them and this community and thinking, oh, kind of like they're lesser than. And not at all. Not at all. Human spirit was alive and well. It's just that they didn't have certain resources. And once that access was there, I mean, honestly, they shoot past most of the people that are, in my team, in my network marketing business, because there's a lot of people that don't realize how good we have it here, and don't take advantage of the resources that are straight in front of them, and it's get all in their mind. But these people didn't, and it humbled me. It pushed me back. And when he was sharing this about the quadriplegic, I was like, yeah, you need to drop that. You need to see people as people, just as capable, just as much potential. Doesn't matter the circumstances. Their soul chose a certain journey, a certain location. So I don't know if that relates with any of you. If you've caught yourself, hey Doug, good to see you on here live. But it's interesting. He shared about also Mother Teresa. He was talking about just a video he had watched where she was, picking up these kids, these orphans off the street. And, one baby that was just filled with scabs and crusted in dirt and just emaciated. And she picked the baby up and she said simply, looking at this baby, looking into its eyes, what a beautiful child of God. That's what she saw. She didn't feel pity. She didn't feel bad. She just, wow, I'm looking at your pure essence. I'm looking at the soul within, right? Look at this beautiful child of God. And she took the child to one of her centers and there was no judgment, right? We have so much judgment, but if you can just see the God in everyone, that's what I try to do. That's why I love looking at people's eyes, because there's something about the eyes. I think they're the window to the soul. You can see people's eyes. You connect in with the thing beyond the mind, and that's beautiful. And that's what Mother Teresa was doing here. So let's get into this. The single greatest challenge currently facing the human species. Put it in the chat. What do you think the single greatest challenge currently facing the human species is? I read this and I was like, do I agree with this statement? Actually, yeah, I think I do. This is on page 155. He says it is judgmental thinking, dividing everything into right and wrong. And what's really interesting is this is the first story in the Bible, right? Genesis. What happens? Adam and Eve eat of the apple, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and wisdom, right? That's what they ate from. Meaning they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and all of a sudden, boom, now things are, some is good, some is bad. They went from unity in the garden, right, to polarity. What's good, what's bad. And that's exactly what happens to us. We start to have opinions about what is good, what is bad, what should be, what shouldn't be, what I like, what I don't like. I only want good, I never want bad. I only want money, I never want to be broke. I only want happy, I never want sad. I only want, promotions in my business, I never want to lose business. And dividing everything into right and wrong when we have judgments, right? This is literally, I think it's amazing. This is the essence of what is taught. Very first thing in the Bible. It is also what is taught in the spiritual lineage that I follow, going from unity to polarity and then duality, meaning, yeah, there's right and wrong. That's how this world operates. There's day and night. That's how we exist on this plane. We need the polarity. But once you decide one is good and one is bad, I prefer this, I don't prefer that, all of a sudden now you're moving into duality. Now, he says, you are encountering the challenge that is the biggest challenge that faces the human species, which is this preference. Which, if you understand this, if you can just hang with me for the next 20 minutes that we've got together, you will see what we mean here, because this is everything. He says humanity is dealing with a very strange distortion, because we even kill in the name of God. You don't believe this, and so you're bad, and you're a heretic, and it's crazy what the mind can do when it starts to separate and it starts to judge. He says it's easy to see you do know how to function though in the acceptance-based evolution mode. So, yes, a lack of tolerance and acceptance is what's needed. Yeah, acceptance is where we need to go. So think about the example of a child learning how to walk. Obviously, you probably don't remember yourself learning how to walk, but you've probably seen a kid learning how to walk. And what happens, right? The kid falls down more than it walks. It, quote unquote, fails a whole lot. But do you find yourself, right, complaining to your spouse that your child is doing a terrible job? That this child is spending most of its time falling down and not walking? Right? Do you ridicule the process that this child is going through, filled with mistakes, right? Since it's falling a lot more than it's walking. Do you judge her because she's not walking, because she's substandard, because her performance is not great? She's not walking immediately. No, that's ridiculous, right? You look at it in this example and you're like, no, of course we encourage it. We accept the fact that it's going to take some mistakes, some figuring out, some strengthening of the muscles, some coordination. It's going to take weeks, maybe months. It's going to take some time for this baby to get going, all right? You don't judge. But when I say these things, right, reflect on yourself. Do you talk to yourself this way? Why aren't you better? Why didn't you get it right? Why couldn't you have done this? Why aren't you learning this faster, right? Do you judge others in this way? We do. It's incredible how quickly we do. And I think this is a clear example to see what we should be doing, right? Because no one would be foolish enough to talk to a little baby like that. We all understand the process of learning to walk. We have compassion for the stumbling youngster, and we encourage and support them. We praise the efforts. We comfort them when they fall. We're seeing where they're trying to go. We're knowing they're falling short, but that they're going to get there, and so we encourage all along the way. And he says, rather than learning to walk, most of us are in the process of learning to love. That is what most of humanity is in the process of, and unfortunately, we don't give ourselves the grace that we give these kids when they're learning how to walk. There are mistakes. I'm going to read here from page 156. So often, people are involved in behaviors and attitudes that appear to be anything but loving. However, given the magnitude of what's involved in spiritual evolution, it's wise to bear in mind that learning to love unconditionally takes much more time and is immeasurably more difficult than learning to walk. It is a process. It is not an event. Learning to love. Love being non-judgmental, all accepting, all allowing. That is your loving nature, right? Like the sky. It just totally is open to whatever weather wants to move through. All right. It's interesting, right? They say falling in love. This is what we're all learning to do. And you certainly fall a lot when you're learning to walk, but we fall a lot when we're learning to love, when we're learning to connect with others. This is just what happens. So if we go back to the backpack, remember we started this chapter talking about how we're all carrying around a backpack of rocks. And so the question is, well, what are these rocks? The rocks are judgments that you've accumulated throughout your existence. Judgments on what should be, what shouldn't be, how it should have gone, how it didn't go, what I did do, what I didn't do, what this person said, what they didn't say. These judgments of right and wrong, right? The polarity that exists, but starting to have preference, going into that duality. And he says there's two things we have to master in order to let go of this backpack, to let down all these rocks, to let down all of this. Number one, the first that has to do with the attitude of acceptance. As you master the practice of acceptance, you learn how to go forward without picking up more rocks. You just learn to accept what has happened and then act, rather than resist, because when you resist, you will inevitably suffer. This is the key. All of humanity is struggling because they are resisting reality. Accept reality as it is. It's here. It's occurring. Now, what can you do? Not from an emotional state. You look at protesters, and there's a comment in here from an activist. And she says, most protesters get it wrong because they come in with charged emotion. I mean, we're seeing this right now, in the U.S. There's some charged emotion. People are screaming and being crazy in protests. What is that accomplishing? Nothing. You're going to get more of what you don't like. All right? The one who wins the day is the one that's able to do it peacefully. Is able to act from a place of acceptance, not emotional triggered. This shouldn't be, it ought to be different. No, it is how it is. So let me accept this and act rather than resist and suffer. Now, the second competency is learning the skill of releasing judgments, misunderstandings, misinterpretations, misidentifications. By doing so, you release the rocks you've already collected, that have been weighing down your pack for God only knows how long. We'll get to this in chapter 9. So remember, the authentic self is one of non-duality, that witnessing presence that's there all of the time, that just sees everything as it is. It's like seeing from soul-centered eyes, right? Seeing that there is no good or bad. Even the struggles, there's a blessing in them, right? Your soul is evolving and learning, and it needs the challenges. It's like we have to go to the gym and lift heavy things so that our muscles break down and get stronger. We have to go through difficult things in life so that we emotionally, we mentally, we spiritually get stronger. All right? And if you look from the authentic self, from the witnessing presence, he says, from this altitude, you neutrally observe daily events from within the context of your spiritual reality. You can see and accept that life is filled with many different expressions and diverse experiences. All right, you have no preference. You can be the sky. You just observe, you accept, you then evaluate, and then you make a choice without all of the emotional turmoil that so many of us kick up, right? Unfortunately, though, it's difficult to know in advance the results and the consequences of our choices. So we might be able to see, to accept what's going on, to make a choice, but then we make the wrong choice, right? Or it seems like the wrong choice, because sometimes our decisions result in a lot of painful experiences, right? An ordeal that follows where, had we known, we maybe would have made a different choice. But the reality is, a lot of people call these mistakes. And what we would say is they're not mistakes. They're not mistakes at all. Just like the baby's not making mistakes when it's learning how to walk. It's just learning. It's just part of learning. Every choice that goes down a road that you're like, darn it, I wish I didn't end up on this road. It's like, it's learning. Don't judge yourself. Drop the judgment. Okay? Put a 1 in the chat if you're with me. You guys with me? I'm going to read here at the bottom of page 158. All right? And I want you to just see, do you do this to yourself? As I read this, I want you to ask yourself, did I do this to myself already today? Did I do it in the last week? All right, listen. If you're immersed in the right-wrong approach, you'll judge these so-called mistakes as wrong or bad, and then extend and amplify the problem by judging yourself as wrong or bad for making them. You'll experience the result of this process as emotional suffering, for you're demonstrating a lack of understanding regarding the 7th principle of spiritual psychology. All of life is for learning. Do you do this to yourself? Do you tell yourself, oh, you made the wrong choice, you did a bad thing, right? Knock it off. Knock it off. You're just learning, all right? You need to have this new perspective. Here's the new perspective. And just feel into, how would it feel if you looked at life this way? How would this change just everything? If you do this, if you shift your perspective to the authentic self, to this just accepting, all allowing, you'll see everything as opportunities within the context of the bigger spiritual picture, where they're revealed to be precisely what provided you with the feedback for the purposes of your own learning. When the kid falls down, it's feedback to the body of like, nope, don't do that. That doesn't walk. Okay? Further, you'll now rest in the assurance that if you don't benefit from your experiences, your personally assigned stackers will provide you with endless additional tests of a similar nature. In fact, you can count on it. Remember, those stackers are who stack things into our life, the experiences that we need to have to learn the lessons that we came here to learn. And until you learn it, you're just going to have to keep repeating it, okay? So it's insane to do the same thing again and again, right? You need to switch. You got to switch here. All right? So write this down. I think you could repeat this and read this daily. There is no experience you've had or so-called mistake you've ever made or will ever make that justifies your judging yourself as bad, as wrong, as unworthy, as a failure, as defective, or any other word you would choose to use. I'm going to read it again. There is no experience you've had or so-called mistake you've ever made or will make that justifies you judging yourself as any of these things. Bad, wrong, unworthy, a failure, defective, anything like that. You are not. From the vantage point of soul-centered eyes, looking at the reason your soul came here, there's no right or wrong in the learning process. There's no blame or fault. There's no, I'm upset because this happened. There's none of that. There's no judgment. There's no condemnation. There are no mistakes. There are only choices, and then there are consequences, All of this within an all-encompassing perspective of acceptance and peace and compassion and joy and love. You accept it all, and you're always going to learn. That's how it goes, guys. All right, if you want a prescription for a grace-filled life, to be able to live like this, he says, there's no more argument with what is. I was listening to my spiritual teacher this weekend, and he said, my secret is that moment by moment, every day, in every interaction, I simply drop my mind. Think about it. You're at the doctor, you're getting news, or there's an appointment you made and the person didn't come prepared, or whatever. What happens? The mind starts going. Shouldn't be this way, ought to be different, could have been different, they should do differently, blah, blah, blah. It's the right, wrong, it's the judgment. And so what he says he does, he drops the mind. When the mind starts, he stops listening. He comes back to presence, back to silence, fully accepting what is. That's the trick. The trick is no judgment. The trick is see the mind chatter and drop it. See the duality that the mind is trying to make out of the situation and go, no, I'm accepting exactly what is. And then I'm going to figure out from a non-reactive, emotional, intense place how to respond. I'll make a choice. All right. The result of this will be freedom from unnecessary emotional suffering. That was all page 159. I think it's a great page. And it kind of culminates in this principle. A life filled with acceptance, this is principle number 18. A life filled with acceptance is a life devoid of unnecessary emotional suffering. It is a life filled with love. Sounds like a life I want to live. All right. And just think about, like, you can practice this in just the easiest of situations, right? They shared here about people that were driving and getting cut off in traffic, right? How many of us have driven and somebody on the road did something crazy? And what happens in the mind? The mind jumps in. And one reaction is to get road rage and to beep your horn and to yell and to scream. And what's happening? You're getting really emotionally upset. You're suffering. Your life force energy is getting depleted. Did it change the behavior of the person? No, it didn't. Did it change you? Yeah, it did. For the better? No, for the worse. Okay, so what else could you do? You could just accept that it's happened. You could try and put yourself in their position and go, man, I wonder if they're late for something. I wonder if there's an emergency. I hope they're okay. You could have compassion. You should say, I'm going to slow down so that I can be more aware of drivers on the road because there's a lot of upset people out here today, right? I'm going to take responsibility for what I can. I'm going to not be distracted myself. I'm going to be fully present myself. Accept, be curious, act, right? Do not resist. It's just start with these little itty bitty things. And then you're going to be able to handle the bigger things when they come because bigger things are coming. Your stackers are going to make sure of it. Bigger things are coming. Do it on the little ones. Okay, lift the little weights first. And he's saying, he's not saying it's easy or that this can be mastered in a short period of time, but just focus on being a bit more compassionate and accepting today than you were yesterday. He reminds us that spiritual evolution and growth is a process. It is not an event. All right, so just try to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. Today when you drive, make it a little bit better than yesterday when you drove. All right. Once you begin releasing judgments, you'll find that they're all that stand between a life filled with unnecessary emotional suffering and one filled with love and compassion. That is why my teacher says, I have just learned to drop my mind because all my mind does is lead me to emotional suffering. And if I don't engage my mind and I don't follow what the thoughts are saying, I live in a loving, compassionate, present zone. But the ego is very tricky. The ego tries to jump in. Humanity is suffering from this, so the masses do this. It's normalized. We see it displayed in behaviors on, the movies we watch, the TV shows, our friends, our family. We see it. We think it's normal. It's not normal. Everyone is suffering. You don't need to suffer. Drop the mind, right? Drop the mind, drop the judgments, drop the right and wrong. Just be whole. Totally accept what is that is, and then decide how to respond. And, this is where there was a little bit of talk from this activist, the lady that went up into the redwoods and she lived in the tree for 2 years to prevent it from being taken down. And so she says, this was a really good example for her, a spiritual practice, like, because she was just connected through love to the trees. And so that's why she was doing what she was doing. She wasn't angry at the corporations. She wasn't angry at the logging company or whatever was happening. She wasn't angry at the government. She didn't come with anger. She was just expressing her love for these trees because these trees had connected her to this greater world. And so she acted through that love, and things changed. Things shifted. She saved, 3 acres, it sounds like, of these redwoods. Life must be lived in a higher plane, Emerson says. We must go up to a higher platform to which we are always invited to ascend. There, the whole aspect of things changes. The higher platform is going from this polarity that we're in, the duality that we're in, coming back and seeing, yes, there's things that are opposites, but I can accept them all as one. We have to change. We have to ascend, he says, to a higher vantage point, to a higher platform. All right? The way to do this is to transform and heal whatever disturbance and negativity resides within. It's by performing this healing work that you take yourself out of the war that you say you're against. He's talking about this quote from A Course in Miracles. The generation who brings peace will not be the generation who hates war, but the generation who loves peace. He's talking about inside of yourself, you have to find, just like this woman, she found love, not anger, and she acted from love. Inside of yourself, you have to find the peace. You find that through dropping the mind. You find that through letting go of preference. You find that through just being okay with what's here. And they're not saying, I'm a doormat, run over me, I condone all the BS that's happening in life. They're not saying that. They're saying, get your own emotional state regulated, see clearly what's happening, and then take action. Like this woman did. She said, I'm gonna climb the tree and I'm gonna sit in the tree. I love the trees. Okay, she took action, not from a place of anger. There was no emotional turmoil. She accomplished the objective. But these protesters that come out screaming and acting crazy, what is that going to elicit? People screaming and acting crazy back. It's going to go nowhere. It's pointless. Okay? He says, Principle 19, your primary goal is not to change the school. Your primary goal is to graduate. So our goal is to not go out into life and say, this should be this way and try and control and manage everything. The goal is to manage the inner world, to drop the mind. That's graduation. You graduate from this school when you stop getting pulled into the duality, when you stop getting pulled into the judgments. That's how you graduate. All right? You don't have to change the world, you have to change yourself. That's why, what is the quote? Be the change you want to see in the world. Be it. Literally within yourself. Be it. That's what will change the world. That's all there is to it. But it's easier to project and to want to do it out there than to take responsibility and to look in the mirror and to go, oh, I need to shift. I need to change. We'd much rather make other people change. It's fascinating. But stop lying to yourself. Okay? Stop lying to yourself. Now, hopefully you played with these STEM sentences. I'll just share with you what I wrote. He says, one way I could be more accepting is, I said releasing expectations. I could be more accepting if I just stopped having expectations of others. Another way I could be more accepting is, what did I write? Seeing all that have us wish had what? I don't know what I wrote. I have no idea what I wrote, but hopefully you wrote something here. A judgment I would like to let go of is what others choose to do and how they treat other people. So a judgment I have sometimes is how people choose to treat me. And I have judgments about how they're treating me. And I need to let that go. Like, it's just revealing to me things about them. It doesn't reveal a darn thing about me. But sometimes I find judgments popping up about that. So gotta let it go. All right, guys. Chapter 9 is a big one. So I think we'll read to page 176, right where it says soul-centered forgiveness. We'll read to there. So that is chapter 9 starts. Where do you start? Nope, not there. It starts on page 165, and we'll read to page 176, the very top of it. You'll stop at soul-centered self-forgiveness. All right? So I will see you next week. I hope this is a lot for you to chew on and think about, and just practice. Drop the mind. When the judgments come in, when the right-wrong stuff comes in, drop it. Go to acceptance. Okay? I'll see you guys next week.